When I tell you guys, I had to build my glutes from the ground up, I mean it. I was never naturally blessed with big glutes, which is something that I always hated, but knew that it was something that I could change if I really put in the work and really wanted it. And so I did. But along my journey, I did waste so much time and I also made so many mistakes. So I have decided to pile together my top 5 tips when it comes to growing your glutes to help you avoid making the mistakes that I did. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all well. How are we? Today we have a little bit of a different video. Some of you guys might remember back on my vision boards video that I did mention that I really want to start incorporating more videos onto my channel that actually add value to you. I love doing my weekly vlogs, but also I want to put stuff out there that is going to be of benefit to you. And I thought, what better way to kick this off than to actually give you guys my top 5 glute growth tips from someone who has made so many mistakes, learned so many lessons, and have built the glutes of my dreams. I started my glute growth journey around November 2020 when I participated in my first bulk. And it's fair to say I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't do things right, and if I had known these tips sooner, I could be so much more further into my glute journey right now. Like, my glutes could be bigger, basically, guys, okay? And whilst I have made amazing progress and I am so proud of myself, I want you guys to go into your glute growth journey. Maybe you're already in it. Maybe you're just looking for some tips. I want you guys to take these tips with you and to remember them, because I feel like these are the top tips that I can give you for when it comes to growing your glutes. As much as social media is amazing and there are so many genuine, helpful people out there, there are unfortunately also people who will give you incorrect information and make you believe you should be doing something, and that something is not always the right thing. So yeah, this video is going to be your simple and no bullshit guide on how to actually grow your glutes. So tip number 1 that I am going to give you is to train smart and remember quality over quantity. One of the biggest mistakes I made, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, was thinking that I needed to train my glutes every single day in order to see faster results. But actually, muscle growth happens during recovery, not during your workouts. So how often should you actually train your glutes? Let's start with that. Research actually suggests that training a muscle 2 to 3 times a week is going to be optimal for growth. I have tried both. I have trained my glutes 3 times a week. I have trained my glutes twice a week, but I definitely find that twice a week works perfect for me because I am able to go into those 2 glute sessions, push myself to the max, and have enough recovery time in between my sessions. So why, Ali, is recovery so important, you might ask? Let me tell you. So every time you train, you actually create micro tears in your muscle fibers, and your body repairs these fibers during rest, which basically makes them stronger and bigger over time. So yes, skipping recovery in between sessions will actually slow down your progress and can increase your risk of injury. And I thought I would give you a quick little few tips on how to actually optimize your recovery, because it is something that is so important when it comes to hypertrophy. So make sure you are getting at the very least 7 hours sleep per night. Studies show that muscle protein synthesis, basically where your muscles grow, is highest during deep sleep. If you do struggle to get in your full at least 7 hours sleep, some things that personally help me is turning off my screens an hour before bed, reading before bed to help me just really settle down and relax, as well as having a consistent bedtime and wake up schedule. Next, you're gonna want to prioritize your nutrition. Nutrition plays a big role in recovery, and we will talk more about that in a sec. And prioritize mobility, stretching, and obviously active recovery. So on a rest day, go for a walk, get your blood flow going, it'll do your muscles good. Stretching after your workout to help you cool down, and stretching obviously also helps prevent DOMS. But yeah, low intensity movement after your training can obviously, of course, help prevent tightness as well. So yeah, if you have been overtraining, cutting your sessions back and training smarter, not harder, will actually give you better results. And whilst we are on the topic of training smart, I do just want to mention this. If you are rushing through your exercises and you are not prioritizing quality over quantity, your glute gains are going to suffer. I did myself actually hit a plateau in my training at one point because I did let my ego unfortunately take over. I was too focused on lifting heavier instead of executing each rep with proper form and intention. But trust me when I say that dropping the weight, performing the movement slow and controlled and with intention is going to massively help you improve your glute gains. If you think about it, if you were doing a movement, you're not fully performing the form properly. So let's say a hip thrust. A hip thrust, you're meant to reach full hip extension at the top. So I don't know how to like show you this, but like say you're not hitting that top position in a hip thrust, your glutes are under the most tension at that point. So if you're not hitting that full range of motion, your glute gains are going to suffer from that. Sometimes you have to remember, I feel like especially when it comes to hypertrophy, it's not about how much you lift, but how well you lift it. Moving on to tip number 2, and quick fun fact, 2 is my lucky number. You guys didn't need to know that, but now you know. Fill your glutes. Nutrition is key. I used to think that training alone was enough to build muscle, but in reality, if you are not eating enough, your glutes are not going to grow. To put it in the most simplest way possible, if you are under eating, your body will not have the energy or the building blocks to create new muscle tissue. So let's talk a bit about calories. I'm sure a lot of you guys know what I mean by this. So how many calories do you actually need to see muscle growth? If you are new to training, I would definitely recommend starting at your maintenance calories, where you're not gaining or losing weight. Because you're a newbie, you're going to benefit from those newbie gains. But if you do want to maximize muscle growth and you are more of a regular trainer, you've been going to the gym for a while, you might want to consider eating in a calorie surplus. Now, of course, this exact number of calories is going to vary based on each individual person. There is so much to take into account, like your activity level, your weight, your height. There's so much that goes into it. I definitely recommend maybe going online and looking at a calorie calculator and getting an approximate number of calories, trialing out those calories for 2 weeks, seeing how you feel, how your weight changes, and adjust there. This process is also known as bulking. Like I mentioned earlier on, I have done a few bulks, and it is one of the most effective ways to gain muscle, as you are giving your body some extra fuel. You're giving your muscles extra fuel to build, do you know what I mean? But I am going to be real with you. I'm not going to lie. It is a hard process to mentally deal with, in the fact that you do have to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable within yourself. You will likely gain some fat, but if you do want to limit the fat gain that will come alongside it, I definitely recommend going into a smaller calorie surplus. But yeah, if you are very serious about growing your glutes, I would 100% recommend trialing a bulk for 8 to 12 weeks, seeing how you feel after that point, whether you want to continue on, drop back to maintenance, or go into a slight deficit. But here is the thing, let me tell you guys this right now, okay? My first bulk was a mess because I viewed it as just calories. And at that point, in my defense, I wasn't very educated on the nutrition aspect of things, but I am here to tell you right now, your food quality is important. I want you to prioritize quality nutrition by prioritizing whole nutrient-dense foods to fuel your training and to help you recover properly. So our macronutrients that really matter are protein. Protein, of course, is going to be something so important when it comes to building and repairing your muscle tissue. You need to make sure that you are consuming enough protein. I would recommend 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kg of body weight. It is the foundation of muscle growth. We also have carbs, which is actually our main energy source. And obviously having energy is important. You want to be able to push yourself in your gym sessions. How can you expect to push yourself in your workouts if you don't have fuel to get you going? It's like trying to start a car that has no gas in it. And then of course we have fats, which are essential for hormone function. So let's not neglect our healthy fats. Now, can you grow your glutes in a calorie deficit? So this is basically a process called recomposition, where you're building muscle yet losing fat at the same time. And yes, it is possible, but it will be a much slower and tedious process. Studies actually show that beginners or those returning to training after taking some time off will benefit most from body recomposition. Although ideally, if you have been training for a while, you're not new to training, then I would definitely recommend sticking at maintenance or going into a slight calorie surplus. Moving on to tip number 3, and this is such a big one, make sure that you are progressively overloading week after week. This was one of the biggest game changers for me when I finally understood why we need to progressive overload. So to put it simply, progressive overload is just basically the principle of gradually increasing stress on your muscles over time. So why is progressive overload essential? Muscles adapt to stress. If you keep lifting the same weights and performing the same amount of reps, your body has literally no reason to grow. So how can we actually apply progressive overload in the gym? Number 1, obviously increasing your resistance over time. So adding weight to your movements. And this can be in small increments. It doesn't have to be a big increase in weight. Like you can literally add 1.25 plates to each side, although your lower body is stronger. So you could probably add 5 kg, 10 kg. Number 2, increase your reps and your sets. Do more work with the same weight. Number 3, apply some advanced training techniques. My favorite one is personally eccentrics, where you're basically slowing down the movement on the eccentric phase, which basically helps increase muscle damage and therefore stimulates more muscle growth. Number 4, increase your training volume, so add some more overall work. And number 5, you could reduce your rest time to add a bit more intensity. So there are so many ways for you to apply progressive overload, and you want to be doing this week after week. Keep a notebook, write it down. Next time you go to the gym, I want you, even if it's in your notes on your phone, write down the exercise you're doing. Okay, you're doing hip thrusts. You're currently hip thrusting 50 kg. Your rep range is 8 to 10 reps, and you're hitting 10 reps each set pretty easily. That means it's time to up the weight. Next time you go to the gym, I want you to try increasing the weight. So maybe you could add 2.5 plates each side, which is obviously a total of 5 kg. You could add 5 kg plates each side, increase it by 10 kg, and see how you feel. See how many reps you can perform. Maybe then you hit 8 reps per set and you struggle to hit those reps. Okay, good. You were at a good point. Now keep going with that for the next week or 2 and seeing if you can increase those reps. And then once you get to that point again, when you're hitting 10 reps each set, it is time to again then up the weight. So to put it a bit more simply, as a good rule of thumb, if you could easily do an extra 2 reps on your last set, then it's time to increase the weight. But if your form starts breaking down, then maybe even regress the weight and focus on perfecting your form, having control before increasing it back up again. Messy form is going to happen here and there when you're really pushing yourself. So for example, your final 2 reps of an exercise might not look as good quality as your first few, and that is honestly bound to happen here and there. But if from the first rep your form is sloppy, then you're probably lifting too much weight. Tip number 4, structure your glute workout strategically. I can't say that word. I'm not gonna bother trying again. You guys can see it on the screen. You know what I mean, okay? Firstly, okay, I want to quickly just mention that you need to remember that your glutes are not just one muscle. They are made up of 3 muscles, and all 3 muscles need to be targeted for well-rounded glute development. So number 1, we have our gluteus maximus, which is our biggest muscle, and this is responsible for hip extension, so such as squatting, deadlifting, hip thrusting. We then have our glute medius, also known as the side booty. It is on the upper side of your glute and is responsible for hip abduction and stability. And then finally, we have the glute minimus. This is your smallest glute muscle and it assists the glute medius with hip stabilization. So just doing, for example, a hip thrust or just doing a squat is not going to cut it, especially if you want to build a round, juicy look. So next we're going to talk about how to actually structure your glute workout. And this is something that I have ran into a lot of trial and error for. And I feel like right now I'm at a really good place with the structure of my glute workouts. It's always the same and is definitely my favorite way of structuring it. So number 1, you're going to want to start with a warm-up. So this is just a general warm-up. I usually personally do 10 to 15 minutes on the treadmill, followed by some dynamic movements that get into the muscles that I'm going to be training, as this will prepare those muscles for the exercises and the movements that I'm going to be performing. Now, I'm going to mention this now. There is a lot of debate about glute activation, and despite me not actually doing it myself, I am not going to slam it because I actually think glute activation is amazing. For me, when I first started my fitness journey, you guys can probably tell I'm a very quad dominant girly. My quads always used to take over all the damn time, and performing a glute activation prior to my sessions just really helped me like feel it more, like help with my mind muscle connection, understand how to sort of activate it. And I think because I done that so much at the start of my glute growth journey, I always started with a glute activation. It is why I feel like now my glutes actually feel like the dominant muscle when it comes to me training lower body. I feel like my glutes are the ones working the most, whereas prior it was always my quads. I was always quad dominant. So yeah, I would recommend you do a glute activation if you are a beginner to the gym, or if you are struggling to feel your workouts in your glutes. Mind muscle connection is actually something that is pretty huge. It's crazy how different an exercise can feel if you actually focus on your glutes, like performing the movement. So after your warm-up, I like to do 2 to 3 compound movements. A compound lift is basically where you're involving multiple muscles and joints at one time. Your compound movements are basically your squats, deadlifts, RDLs, lunges, and that brings me on to one of those compound movements are going to be a unilateral move. So a single leg move where you're focusing on one side at a time. The reason why I always love to ensure that I include a unilateral movement is because I have personally found them so good for growth. They are just a need, and of course they are also important for balance as well, to make sure that one side isn't getting stronger than the other. So your unilateral exercises could include your forward lunges, reverse lunges, step ups, Bulgarian split squats, like all those type of movements. Then I like to do 1 to 2 isolation movements. An isolation movement is basically where you're isolating one muscle at a time. These I do like to perform in a higher rep range and use them as a sort of burnout for one last final push to finish off my glutes. An example of an isolation exercise is abductions, cable kickbacks. I like to consider glute ham raise. And then finally, of course, you're going to want to finish off your workout with a cool down and a stretch. Make sure you stretch out those glutes to help you with recovery and obviously prevent DOMs. So if you have been doing random glute exercises week after week, I can bet you right now you are not seeing progress. I know it's easy to fall into because I feel like you see so many people on social media constantly switching up their glute workouts, constantly showing you the new best exercise. When in reality, sticking to the basics is what actually works. When I stopped doing all these random movements and I actually stripped it back, focused on simplicity, but pushed myself in those movements, that's when I really saw real growth. But yeah, switching to a structured plan and applying progressive overload will change everything for you. Stick to it for 6 to 12 weeks and see how you progress, not only in your glute growth, but how much stronger you get as well. I am actually now going to share with you my go-to glute workouts, which includes my holy grail glute movements. Like I mentioned, I do 2 glute workouts a week. My first glute workout of the week is my glutes and hamstrings workout, which is more glute bias. So basically I am manipulating exercises and doing them in a way that puts more pressure onto my glutes. So let's go through it. So guys, like already mentioned, we are going to be starting with a warm-up. I did start with 10 to 15 minutes on the treadmill prior to this, and now I'm doing some dynamic movements. Warm-up is so important because not only are you preparing your body for exercise, but you're also avoiding injuries, which is something that you don't want. If you are trying to grow your glutes, you don't want to have to stop because you've injured yourself because you haven't warmed up. Your warm-up doesn't even need to take that long. Like, you can literally do a 5 to 10 minute warm-up. As long as you do something and you're not just jumping straight into those weights, then that is fine. So first up, we are going to be starting with hip thrusts. I love to put hip thrusts first because first of all, they of course a compound movement, but they also have the greatest activation within your glutes, which means they're really ideal to put first because it helps my glutes feel so fired up throughout the rest of my session. So I am going to be doing 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps. For this movement, you really want to make sure that you're hitting that top position and your hips are not hanging down like this. They need to be fully up. Otherwise, you're not going to get the full benefits from doing the movement. Sometimes, especially with an exercise like hip thrusts, it's better to take off the weight and do it with more form and control rather than pushing yourself too much and then basically compromising your form, which therefore leads to you not performing the movement correctly. I am going to be doing it on a machine because I do find that it's just such an easier setup. You can do it with a barbell if you prefer, but because obviously I've been training for a while, my weight's a bit higher, it can be a bit of a faff using a barbell. And especially if you're new to the gym, I definitely recommend starting out on the machine to help build your confidence a little bit. So like I said, I'm going to be doing 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps. The goal is to hit 10 reps, but falling into that 8-9 rep range is fine. I have loaded more weight than usual. I have upped the weight to 180 kg, so we're just going to see how it goes. And this can be a good example for you of what a working set should look like. Have a little play with your feet positioning and see what feels best for you. Usually, the further out you put your feet, the more you're going to hit your hamstrings. If you put them a bit too close, you're probably going to feel it a bit more in your quads. So you want to put them just about in the middle. Put your feet slightly wider than shoulder width and externally rotate them a little. Now, when you are doing this movement, I really want you to squeeze your glutes, especially when you come to the top, because that's where our glutes are under the most tension. After we have done our 8 to 10 reps, we're going to go straight into pulses for as many reps as we can to get an extra burn on our glutes. So let's do it. When you are doing this movement, when you're at the top position right here, see how I hold for 2 to 3 seconds? I want you to do this too. The reason being, like I think I've mentioned this previously, when you are at this position, that is when your glutes are under the most tension. So this top position here, that's where your glutes are loaded the most, where they are working the most. So right at that point, I want you to hold it for 2 to 3 seconds to add some more tension to your glutes. I always like to finish off with some pulses as well, just to get that extra burn. And oh my god, trust me when I say that this will kill. Oh my god. Notice how slow I performed my movements. I performed them with intention. And oh my god, my glutes are on fire. But I managed to hit 10 reps, and now we're going to do that 2 more times. So next up we have Romanian deadlifts. I like to put this straight after hip thrust as we're having a nice good shortening movement followed by a lengthening movement. RDLs are literally one of my holy grails for the glutes. They are such a good glutes movement if you know how to do them correctly. They are a harder movement to master, and it might take you a few tries to get them right and feel them in the right area. But I'm going to give you the best tips I can to help you get there. So first up, when you're doing an RDL, when you're going back into the movement, that's where your glutes are going to be under the most tension. So on that phase, on our eccentric phase, we're going to work on slowing down the movement a little to add a bit more tension. Like our hip thrusts, we are also going to be doing 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps. I am using wrist straps. Do not let your grip strength hold you back from getting your glute gains. These wrist straps basically just help me hold the weight for longer and doesn't allow my grip strength to fail before my glutes, basically. I have already done 1 set, so this will be my second set. I managed to do 9 reps for my first set, so let's just see what we can hit. So something key I want you to remember whilst you are performing an RDL is a hinge movement, not a lowering movement. So basically what I mean by this is that you should initiate the movement from your hips and not think about lowering the weight down. So watch me here now. Watch how I slowly push back with my hips coming down before coming back up. This hinge is going to be what really makes this so much more glute focused. Some other tips is to have more of a bend in the knees. The straighter your knees are, the more you're going to feel it in your hamstrings. So you want to keep a nice bend throughout the movement to help you feel it more in your glutes and target your glutes more, of course. A tip that really helped me whilst I was basically learning how to RDL is imagine there's a rope tied around your waist and it's pulling you back. So next up we have our unilateral exercise. Like I said, you want to make sure that you are including these. They are so important for balance but also are so amazing for growth. I am doing Bulgarian split squats and now I'm doing these on the Smith machine. I actually much prefer them on the Smith machine because I feel like with dumbbells you can feel a little bit wobbly, you can't go as heavy even with wrist straps because I don't know, it's like I just find it so much easier doing it on the Smith machine because I can load so much more weight, I have more stability and therefore I'm able to push myself to create more of a stimulus to grow. So some tips to make your Bulgarian split squat more glute bias. So first of all, you're going to want to be a bit further away from the bench, so there should be more of a gap between the bench and your working leg. You're going to want to initiate the movement by hinging back at the hips again. Don't lower straight down, hinge at the hips, and that's going to help you get into your glutes a bit better. You want to get deep too. As you can see, my knee is basically touching the floor. I also want you to ensure that you are pushing the majority of the weight through your working leg. So that back leg that's on the bench is just there to support you. That front working leg is the one that you want to be driving that weight through. Next we have glute ham raise. This is going to really help us get into our glutes and hammies a lot more. We are going to be doing 2 sets of 12 to 15 reps. After each set, you're going to drop the weight and perform as many reps as you can. The burn, you'll most likely feel more in your hamstrings. But if you want to make it more glutes, have more of a bend in the knee and slightly externally rotate your feet to help engage them a bit more. When you are doing this movement, think about lifting up with your glutes. Mind-muscle connection is absolutely key within this movement. Also, another quick thing that I did forget to mention, keep more of a bend in your knees as well. The more of a bend in the knees you have, the less you're going to recruit your hamstrings, which will therefore make you a bit more glute focused. And like I just said, really make sure that you're initiating this movement with your glutes. Mind muscle, let me explain about mind muscle connection real quick because I keep talking about it and I haven't really explained it. So mind muscle connection is basically where you're focusing on your muscle as you are doing the movement. And this basically helps you actually feel your muscle so much more. To put it simply, it basically helps you activate the right muscles and get better results, which is why I always say to you guys as well, ensure that you are performing movements with intention, focus. Do you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't go to like do some work and just like not use your brain. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't get better that way. And it's the same with exercise. You do have to use your brain and focus on the movements. Okay, so to finish off this workout, we have our glute isolation exercise. This is going to really target your glute max. A mistake I see so much people making with your isolation movements is not upping the weight. Just because it's your isolation doesn't mean you should not be pushing yourself on them. I do prefer to do a higher rep range as you physically can't go as heavier, but I still like to keep the weight challenging and hard. So we're doing 2 sets of 12 to 15 each side. The reason why we only do 2 sets for our isolations is because we don't really need to do 3 sets. I feel like it's just junk volume. You don't need it as long as you're pushing yourself throughout the rest of your workout. So you will be kicking straight back, and as you're bringing your leg back, bring it in front of your body for a bigger stretch on your glutes before pulling it back again. Like I said, we're going to do nice, slow and controlled. This is to really get that last and final burn before you finish your workout. So this is glute workout number 1 complete. Do not forget to finish off with your cool down stretches as well. I forgot to film these, but make sure you do them. So that was my glutes and hamstrings workout. Next, I'm going to take you through my glutes and quads workout. Again, this has more glute bias as that is my primary focus, but I also understand the importance of balance. The thing I see a lot is people like asking like, how can I grow my glutes without growing my legs? First of all, having strong ass legs is sexy AF. So don't even worry about that, okay? You know, I used to be so self-conscious of my legs, but now like I fully embrace them. They look strong, they look powerful. Having big legs is really not a bad thing. And it is important to remember that no matter what glute exercise you are doing, you're always going to include other muscles. There's not one really glute exercise that is only going to target your glutes aside from like an isolation movement. But obviously compounds are where you can progress the weight and add on the most, and those are the ones you're going to see the most progress with. And just purely doing isolation movements, you're not really going to see growth, guys. But yeah, balance is key, and if you want to progress and get stronger in your glute exercises, your hamstrings, your quads, they're gonna have to get stronger too, okay? So with all that being said, here is my glutes and quaddies workout. So after starting out with my usual warm-up, I went on to my first exercise. Again, it's hip thrusts. I start both of my glute workouts this way as I just find it the best for me. Obviously, like I've already mentioned, hip thrusts have such a high glute activation, which means putting them first is really going to help your glutes feel more fired up throughout the rest of your workout, which is why I just love putting them first. The exact same thing, we are doing 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps, followed by pulses for as many reps as we can. This workout was not my best workout. I was feeling really tired and run down because I didn't have the best sleep the night before. So my workout wasn't the best. I did go a little bit lighter in weight, but those workouts happen sometimes. So next up we have glute focused leg press. I personally prefer opting for leg press for my knee dominant exercise because squats for me at the moment are too harsh on my knees because they haven't been feeling the best. So I'm opting for leg press, and I really love the leg press for the glutes because obviously you can load so much more weight and you have so much more stability as well. So of course we can make this more glute bias by changing up a few things about our stance. So first up, you're going to place your feet higher up on the platform. This basically increases hip flexion and removes some more quad involvement, making it a more glutes and hamstrings focused exercise. You can do shoulder width apart or slightly wider, which is what I prefer. And then you're going to want to really slightly externally rotate your feet to involve a bit more of the glutes again. Now, as for your range of movement, you want to go into a deep squat, but you don't want to go so far low down that your lower back rounds because that is obviously going to cause injury. As for your tempo, you don't want to be doing it too fast. A lot of the time I see people just trying to get through the movement. As I keep mentioning, you need to perform the movement with intention. So slowly lower down and push back up, focusing on your mind-muscle connection. A good tip that might help you involving your glutes a bit more is pushing through your heels, and imagine that you're driving the weight entirely through your glutes. Mind-muscle connection works wonders. Also, before starting, I definitely recommend adjusting the safety stop. I've seen too many videos of people snapping their legs on a leg press, which we don't want. And don't worry, you're not going to do that as long as you're not locking out your knees on top. So when you're pushing up, you do want your knees to be like that. Keep a nice soft bend in them at all times and make sure your safety stop is on. So if you do end up failing for whatever reason, then it's not going to basically land on you and crush you. One more. And there you have it. So next up we have step ups. This is our unilateral exercise. I am obsessed with step ups personally. I feel it so much in my glutes, and especially since I've been doing them on the Smith machine. Now that's not to say doing them with dumbbells or cable is bad, but I definitely felt like I was held back on those due to not being able to have as much stability and therefore load more weight. I knew I was capable of lifting more, so the Smith machine basically allows me to load heavier and have more stability, meaning that I can push myself that bit further. So we are going to be doing 3 sets of 8 to 10. And now one thing I will say is that you need to make sure the focus is on your working leg and you are not using your non-working leg to push yourself up. Your non-working leg should just tap the floor, and then you should be driving back up through your working leg. Okay, so I've actually angled my DJI so you can actually see what I mean about your feet. With this exercise, really make sure you're squeezing your core, as you will likely feel it in your lower back otherwise. And to initiate the movement, you don't want to just drop straight down. You want to make it a hinge movement to make it a bit more glute focus. So hinge back at your hips to lower yourself down. Tap the floor with your foot and then purely drive that weight back through this working leg. 6 reps will do me today. I'm having one of those workouts. On to our final exercise, we do have cable abductions. This is our isolation movement and it is unilateral, so we're focusing on one side at a time. If you are wanting to add some more quad work, I would recommend doing some leg extensions before this, 2 sets of 12 to 15. But today, I'm really not fancying doing them. I just want to get it done. I want to get home today because I'm not having the best session, and those sessions happen sometimes. It's just all part of the process. So this is going to target more of our glute medius, which is this muscle here. So what you're going to be doing is kicking out laterally to the side of you. And whilst you're doing that, really squeeze that glute medius, this muscle right here. So you want to think about squeezing. You could do a glute medius kickback, but right now I am really enjoying just doing cable abductions. As you come back in front of your body, I like to cross it over me to add more of a stretch before pushing back out again. But yeah, let's do 2 sets of 12 to 15 reps. I do actually need to go lower in weight for abductions as, guys, it hits. But yeah, like our cable glute kickbacks, we're going to perform these slow with control and just really focus on getting a nice burn to finish off the workout. And something I don't want to see you doing is yanking that leg up like this. You want to, like I said, do it with control, so push out like so. This is killing already. But something I do want to add, if you need to mess up your form a little to get an extra rep or 2, that is completely fine. Sometimes your form does have to go a little off to squeeze in an extra rep or 2, but I do want you to try and focus on making sure you have the form down. Now, you will likely feel this movement in your stabilizing leg, well, or shall I say glute. That is completely normal. I always actually feel it a bit more in my stabilizing leg. Yeah, so to add on to that, it is normal to feel glute abductions or kickbacks in your stabilizing leg, sometimes even more than in the moving leg. This happens because your stabilizing glute, your glute medius, is working hard to keep your pelvis steady and prevent excessive movement. So this stabilizing side has to resist tipping over, which can create a stronger sensation than the moving leg. But yeah, that is something I wanted to clear up because I literally always get asked this when it comes to kickbacks. It is normal to feel it in your stabilizing leg. I always feel it in my stabilizing leg. Like I said, your glute medius is working on stabilizing during this movement, so you're bound to feel it. Ow. And then don't forget to finish off your workout with some stretches to help your recovery and prevent DOMS. So that is my glutes and quaddies workout, which I hope you guys enjoyed that and found that section of the video helpful. Like I said, they included some of my holy grails. So yeah, you can repeat those workouts week after week. If you want to do the same workouts as me, feel free. Like I mentioned, do the same workout for 6 to 12 weeks. So if you were going to incorporate those 2 glute sessions into your routine, make sure you are doing them for 6 to 12 weeks whilst progressively overloading, and you will see some results, I promise you. And that brings me on to my final tip. So tip number 5, genetics, consistency and patience all matter. So firstly, let me talk to you guys a bit about genetics. You might see some girls on social media and they just have a really big bum. They always have. And that's because some people just naturally store more fat or have just rounder, juicier glutes, while others like myself have to work a lot harder to even get remotely a bum, okay? Genetics also play a huge role on how your glutes actually look. Some people have literally circular glutes, you know what I mean? Like they're so round, so juicy, Other people like myself have like a butterfly shape to their glutes. And that is completely normal too. And just because social media pushes out like these big, round, juicy glutes doesn't mean that your butterfly shaped glutes are any less, okay guys? But no matter where you are starting from, consistency and patience is key. I actually started my glute growth journey, like I mentioned, in November 2020, and that is coming on to 5 years this year. It has taken me a whole 5 years to get my glutes from this to this. And that is something that I want you guys to remember. Do you know, now I look back and I'm like, imagine if I never started 5 years ago. Where would I be now? Do you know what I mean? So I want you to just start and be patient and consistent. If I didn't have patience, if I wasn't consistent, my glutes would not be nowhere near the size they are now. And comparing my glutes from where I started to where they are now, they have grown tremendously. But yeah, I feel like consistency and patience are definitely big things that you need to have. It's not going to happen overnight. You see these transformation videos on TikTok and it's like, my glute growth in 2 weeks. And I'm like, really? Did that really take you 2 weeks? No, it didn't, hun. Building muscle is a long, lengthy process, and you need to understand that. And there are going to be times where you find it hard to show up. You're not wanting to push yourself, but just remember your end goal. And I also want to mention to please never compare your week 3, for example, to someone's year 3. Or let's just say, let's not compare to anyone at all. You are on your own journey. This is your journey and yours only. Why are we looking at anyone else? Yes, that girl might have amazing glutes. Let's give her a clap. But so will you. We all progress and adapt so differently. But yeah, that's just about everything I want to mention. Final things, like I've already mentioned, stick to a program for 6 to 12 weeks. I would say even 8 to 12 weeks is better. Give yourself time to progress and adapt. Push yourself. Track your lifts. Write it down in your notes like I mentioned earlier. Keep an eye on how you are progressing, where you can up the weight, how you can apply progressive overload. Eat enough to support your recovery and growth. This is so important. You are not going to see progress if you are not prioritizing your nutrition as well. Focus on performing your movements with intention and get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You guys know, like I always say that, but you really do need to get comfortable with the feeling of being uncomfortable in the gym. It's not meant to feel easy, it's meant to feel hard. And discomfort is where we make growth. And like I just mentioned, be freaking patient. Real muscle growth takes months. And I know that might sound demotivating now, but trust me, you will thank yourself later. Give yourself some other little small goals to reach in the meantime to help keep you motivated and continue along your journey. So those are my 5 tips for growing your glutes. I hope you guys found this helpful. I just really compiled together things that I wish I knew and things that I think that you might find helpful. And let me know if there's anything else you want help with. Go in the comments right now, comment down below and tell me what videos you'd like to see from me, what you would like help with in the gym. Maybe you're struggling to stay consistent. Maybe you're struggling to lose fat. Let me know. I want to help you. And if you did find this video helpful, make sure you drop me a like, okay? And of course, subscribe to my channel because I will be posting more videos like this in the future. But yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know, like I said, it's very different to my usual weekly vlogs, but I really want to give you stuff that provides you with more value. My weekly vlogs will resume from next week. I'm just going to slot in a video like this rather than a weekly vlog here and there on a Sunday. So yeah, like I said, let me know what you guys want to see and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye! Love you!